Yeah, that's groovy. Welcome to another episode of Wearing the Folk. We're back, Tully.
We are back. We haven't filmed in a while. We've been doing a lot of other stuff for Weird Realities and beyond.
Weird realities.
But, when we were researching some of the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight, it does feel good uh, just knowing that we can come on and be off the chain if we want to.
Absolutely. It's been a minute, man. I'm really glad to get back to the roots.
Same.
It's not going to be a hard night at all doing two back to back.
No, but for everybody who don't know, we absolutely are going to be doing Weird Awakenings after this. So if you're a fan of the weird universe, definitely tune in.
Absolutely. So we're going to get started. Just going over some things that's happened in recent history and within the news. And I'll turn that over to you to get us getting started on that, good sir. What's happening out there in the world?
Yeah, so we grabbed a couple things that we could talk about tonight. Some funny, some not so funny. Some very dystopian, nightmarish, if you will. But the first thing I brought to get into is something that I've been seeing a little bit more of really over the past year, and it's starting to come back into the spotlight. But the biblical prophecy of the red heifers.
The red heifers.
Now, full disclosure, Stephen Hill is the biblical expert of our group. We are by no means biblical experts, but I do want to read you the story that I found about the red heifers. So, a religious group has transferred a herd of red cows from Texas to West Bank and kept them in a secret location, claiming that it will fulfill a biblical prophecy. Yitzhak Mamo of Jerusalem, a group committed to seeing a new temple built in Jerusalem's old city, spent years tracking down red heifer cows in order to sacrifice one of them in the Israel-occupied West Bank. Members of this group believe one of these red cows needs to be offered to rebuild the Jewish temple in Jerusalem, which was destroyed by the Romans 2,000 years ago. And believers of this prophecy point to the Bible's Book of Numbers, which commands Israelites to offer a red heifer without defect or blemish. And I think that means it can't have more than 2 imperfect hairs, if I'm remembering right.
What's an imperfect hair?
Like if it has a hair that isn't red. So without defect or blemish, and has never been under a yoke.
What's a yoke?
I think it's the collar thing. I could be completely wrong on that, but
I thought they were saying it couldn't be like a jacked red heifer or something, like one that hits the gym.
Yeah, it can't be too. Can't be too muscular. Let's see. Oh, here's Steven. Steven is coming in from Rumble, so Rumble must be working. Hey, Steven.
Hey, Steven.
So a large white altar already awaits the poor chosen red cow, where they are set to be burned on a plot of land overlooking the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. The ceremony must be performed looking directly where the second temple stood before the Romans burned it down. And apparently that happened in 70 AD.
Yeah.
There's now reported a group of sacred red heifer cows which graze at a secure, undisclosed location. This is kind of reiterating his view, but at the end, he stresses that this is not a publicity stunt. And he said that Harry Potter is a good story. The Bible is not a story. The Bible is a way of God to lead us, standing where the second temple used to be. He's given this interview. But I guess now the Dome of the Rock stands where the second temple used to be.
And Alaska Mosque.
Al-
Oh,
I don't know, dude.
Alaska Mosque.
But yeah, so I mean, what do you think about that? Like, how serious do you think that is?
I mean, I've always heard the story of the red heifer too. Like, even South Park did something over it, which was pretty blasphemous. But, I mean, when it comes to prophecy, there are things out there that tell what's going to happen in the future. We've read about it. We've encountered people, through our research that's put out some pretty solid prophecies. I don't know the full story behind the red heifer. I know that's something to do with like potentially uniting people, maybe, or something like that. Uniting the people over there. I could be wrong. I have
Yeah,
no idea.
and I did find, I don't know if we want to play it. I did find a video related to this if we did want to sit through that, but we do have a lot of stories to get through.
Well, let's go ahead and play it.
Okay,
Let's jam it out.
let me get her queued up here.
But and make sure we give credit to whoever created the video.
Yeah, it'll be on there.
All right. But this is coming from the soon to be band TikTok.
Oh yeah, always sporting the TikTok here. Let's see. And I think this person talking is the same person from the interview.
All right,
Let me see. Here we go. Can you see?
Oh, I can see.
Okay.
A massive altar already awaits where the heifer.
Is that not playing?
It's not playing. But that looks like a pretty dope ramp.
Yeah, this is the altar of sacrifice.
Oh, okay.
To be burned. According to some believers, the ceremony needs to be performed right here on the Mount of Olives, looking directly into where the temple once stood. At a secure, undisclosed location are these red heifers, to be precise. Some Jews and Christians believe they're the key to rebuilding the historic Jewish temple in Jerusalem and to beckoning the Messiah. To understand, you have to go back nearly 2,000 years when the ancient Romans destroyed the last temple in the city. To rebuild it, these believers point to the Bible's book of Numbers. It commands the Israelites to sacrifice a red heifer without defect or blemish, and that has never been under a yoke. Only then can the temple rise again. Caring for them on an Israeli settlement in the West Bank is Yitzhak Mamo.
So we have here, after a long research, we find in Texas.
In Texas?
Texas, United States of America.
Texas Red Angus, flying them 7,000 miles to Israel.
This is not a publicity stunt.
What do you mean?
Meaning, this is something you take very seriously.
Harry Potter is a good story.
Yeah.
The Bible is not story. The Bible is the way of God to lead us.
Well,
yeah.
those
So
are
that's
perfect,
that.
Al.
They are pretty cows. So I don't know if that gives us any more answers, but I mean, it's definitely biblical prophecy that they want to fulfill, it seems, and they're going to be doing it this year.
Absolutely. That's a pretty neat story. I mean, but I've heard, the red heifer is one of those things that comes up every few years too. I don't know if they sacrificed one yet. I haven't heard that or anything, but we'll see what comes of it for sure. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to throw one out?
Sure. Let me put on my spectacles. So I can't remember the comedian, but it might have been Dave Chappelle. Maybe his most recent thing where he feels like, where he says some people are part of your story when you're living your best life. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Well, hang on a second. My dogs are barking. They never do this. They really don't. It's weird.
Until we're recording.
But I want to tell a little story of somebody named Valeria. She was living her best life on a plane flight from Antalya, Turkey to Moscow.
Russia. Okay.
Yeah, well, she was going from Turkey to Russia. She was partaking heavily in some cocktails, but they were not fulfilling, her hunger, so to speak.
I don't know
So,
where this is headed.
so she decided to turn her drunken attention to the man seated next to her. This is when she began to forcibly pull down his pants and commit violent sexual acts on him on the plane flight.
Dude, how messed up would you have to be to do that?
I don't know, but apparently there was a bit of a struggle, and the guy lost the struggle, and then he just stopped trying to fight her off. And so while the crew and the passengers watched in horror, no joke, like what is happening, she proceeded to provide this man with oral satisfaction until the deed was done, so to speak.
And then what? I mean, how do you recover from that on the plane? Do you just go back to acting normal?
Well, after assuming wiping her chin off and everything, she was moved to another seat on the plane to get away from the guy. So when she was moved, she must have realized that she had done something, pretty bad, because she decided that she wanted to bribe the flight attendants with $100 bill, a crisp American $100 bill. The crew member threw it in the trash, which what in the hell, that's $100. But Valeria was like, well, no. So she drunkenly fished it out of the trash. And there's video of her fishing the money out of because she apparently dumped it on the cargo floor and like dug through it to get it out. So when they landed, the police were like called, of course, and they detained her with thunderous applause from the people on the plane. And when she was being escorted off the plane by the police, in a quote that has some irony behind it, she said, "I won't go anywhere with a sucker like you."
Dude, what?
No.
Dude, imagine going to the gulag and having to tell that story.
It's horrible. I mean, the guy did not want her to do it, but I mean, it sounds like after a point, he's like, whatever, let's get this over with. So it's pretty bad. But in addition to acting like a fool and performing what sounds like a sonic fellatio on an unwilling participant at that, Valerie was accused of hitting an e-cig and pouring hot water on the floor, which could have been considered just as bad as the crime that was committed before.
Yeah, Stephen.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I'm not ready for that.
No. And
I don't think anybody's ready for that one.
For her hostile behavior on the airplane, she was fined 500 rubles, which is $5.64 in American.
What?
Yeah.
For prior services rendered, I guess.
Yeah. Ain't that horrible though? Like, imagine if that was flipped.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. I think it has a lot to do with the countries that are involved here.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I think that would have been a lot bigger deal.
Yeah, I mean, the terror in that guy, like some chick is sitting next to him, like just slamming cocktails, and then she's like gets those eyes like and starts forcibly removing, like ripping at your pants. Like,
well, yeah. How do you explain that to your wife? You know, like I didn't want it bit off or anything. You know, like
I already had it in there. I didn't know what to do. They made us buckle up.
Good Lord, that's nuts.
That's insane to me. Like, I don't know.
I'm glad that you brought a funny story because I did not bring funny stories.
I don't know if it's funny. It's kind of horrifying, but
It is horrifying. It just has like comedic aspects. It is terrible.
It's got a funny overtone to it. 500 rubles. I was like, well, got to find something. I said, and that's $5. And then it said 564 in America. I went, wow. So she got away with crazy stuff for less than a value meal from McDonald's.
Way less.
Way less.
That don't even cover your chicken nuggets anymore.
No. But that was one that I read. I was like, what?
Good Lord.
But Valeria, I mean, at that particular day, everybody on that plane was part of her story.
Lord.
My favorite thing was when she's being toted off. I ain't going nowhere with a sucker like you.
Yeah, that's nuts. But so the other story that I brought for this week, it will definitely take the tone down from here because it doesn't have any comedic aspects. But so a couple years ago, at this point, this kind of flew under the radar, I guess, because we were, in the back end of COVID. Everybody's worried about other stuff, but they, for the last couple of years, have been trying to achieve AI to brain technology. And in order to do that, they're growing brains. So I'll just read a short excerpt from
Before you do,
yeah.
they're growing brains, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know a kid down the road that needs one. Dude, I was driving home. I guess it was yesterday, probably. And this kid had his cell phone to his ear, walking, the same way I was driving, wearing solid black. It's daytime. I seen him. And he was about 15 feet ahead of me and then crossed straight over into the road right in front of me. So I slammed my brakes, barely miss him, blow my horn, and the little fucker flipped me off. So I jumped out of my truck. I was like, motherfucker! And as soon as I jumped out and started yelling at him, he took off running. But I'm too old and fat to chase anybody. But
I still think that's an appropriate response.
He was like 15 or 16 years old. Like, like he was a mid-teenager. And I was like, you don't know how to look both ways? Like,
oh yeah. And I think there's a lot of, really Gen Z, millennials and Gen Xers that are cooked, dude.
Yeah.
For a lot of different reasons, I think we got poison everywhere from the food to the waves that are going through the air. But anyway,
bro.
Speaking of cooked, BrainAware is a hybrid computing system that uses 3D biological neural networks in a brain. Here's the key word in all this: brain organoid. That's what they're calling these, to advance the capabilities of reservoir computing, a type of artificial neural network based on the idea of capturing and remembering information based on a sequence of electrical stimulations. And the way I understand this, so imagine you have an artificial brain or like an artificially grown brain.
Sure.
And they've got, a computer attached somehow, or like one of these microchips, and they send a command in.
All right.
And they watch how the brain interprets that command. And it's basically like a mapping of thought processes. And I'm sure it's like CRISPR, like I'm sure it's a slow process because it's, or at least what we know of it, it sounds like a slow process, but it can quickly recognize speech patterns and perform complex nonlinear mathematical equations already. This is an old article too. Just think about this. And this is what they're releasing out on the internet too. I mean, God knows what's going on behind closed doors, but it could, they're saying that it could overcome existing shortcomings in AI technologies, providing natural solutions to challenges regarding time and energy consumption and heat production of current AI hardware. Excuse me.
You know what they're fucking doing, man? They are creating a biological quantum computer.
It's exactly, I mean, if you think about the true quantum computer, is right here.
Yeah.
Always has been.
Wow.
So, this computing hardware aims to emulate the structure and working principles of the brain, so that it could be used to address bottlenecking of AI growth. And this is straight from NIH.gov, because I was wondering, as far as the brain aware goes, brain inspired hardware emulates the structure and working principles of a biological brain and may address the same thing, bottlenecking of AI. And I'm trying to find stuff in here. So they apply a spatio-temporal electrical stimulation, and these false brains, or I don't know what you want to call them, lab-grown brains, exhibit nonlinear dynamics and fading memory properties, but they learn from training data. So I mean, they're literally playing God.
Dude, there was a guy that claimed that he had went to the future. I think it was like the 2300s or maybe the 3300s. And the way that he explained everything, he said that there was a city in the sky that was ran by, well, I ain't gonna say it, but there was a city in the sky where everybody lived pretty good. But down here on the ground, people were still workers and like produce
like Elysium.
Yeah. But he said that everything up here was ran by a biological computer. So this right here seems like a precursor for something like that.
Oh yeah, it's like a cyborg, like automatons at that point.
I mean,
where at that point you don't know where one thing begins and another one ends. Like that's truly like the Matrix at that point.
This world we live in.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like the last time they were updating Chat GPT,
yeah,
about a week before they were updating it, after they did all of the shady business with the board at Chat GPT and inserted a bunch of nasty players onto the board. About a week before they were updating it, you saw a bunch of articles that was like, oh, the internet may go out because of a solar flare. The internet may go out because of this or that. And part of me thinks that they didn't know what was going to happen when they unleashed that next level. And I think that's it. They're clenching their ass with every next step of unleashing this stuff.
White knuckling it through life. That's how
yeah, it's like, oh, like if I hit this button, I may or may not shut down the internet.
I mean, the people that put everything into motion are what we would call elites for sure. But I feel like when it comes down to like the people that end up pushing the button, it's just people that's out for adventure and they don't really know exactly what's going to happen, like what you're saying. So I bet they probably are like, nah, this is 80% going to be good.
Dude, it's crazy. like if you look into the GPT stuff, and I know there's others, and they probably have quantum computing, behind the scenes at the dark government's level. But so the CEO of ChatGPT gets like ousted, and the employees love this guy, right? So the employees throw a fit, all of them. And they ended up exiling the board members and bringing the CEO back. Well, when they did that, you had players from like the WEF and a lot of these shady groups that joined the board at that point who had been part of all of this other nefarious shit. And all of a sudden they're a part of Chat GPT now and overseeing the direction.
It's strange that WEF spells whiff, and like you're taking a whiff of big steaming pile of shit. Ain't it?
Yeah. But you know, they got their like all the headlines was just about the CEO. Oh, they got the CEO back, the NOS man, the CEO, and then you start looking at all these new board members, and you're like, Jesus, like
Yeah.
how did all these people get in here? But yeah, that's the brain to AI. Why do you? I mean, think about that. If they weren't planning on using it, why would they be doing it?
Who knows? I mean, obviously they're planning on using it. I couldn't think of any situation where they wouldn't plan on using it. Like, what are they wanting to do? Like, oh, we're just wanting to figure out how to solve Tetris quicker. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Just like back when cloning first started, they're like, oh, but we would never clone a human.
yeah.
Yeah, we just clone sheep and stuff. It's the 90s.
We're cloning sheep to see so we can have more shirts.
Yeah, yeah. It's sustainable.
I don't know, man.
I think behind the scenes there may be some like altered carbon stuff going on. Like,
Definitely. We're in a black mirror society, and it's getting crazier every day. And I don't know, with this TikTok thing, like, I know we probably shouldn't talk about it, but this is a show where we do it.
this is the only show. Yeah, yeah.
What the fuck? Like, why? Okay, they're saying that they're taking it down for national security. You sent me a TikTok of somebody saying that every politician's on there, which is true.
The president is.
Yeah, so if they're worried about national security, go ahead and delete your account.
Well, let's be real though. You can pretty much, like, any company that trades in data like Facebook or any social media or music or Amazon or Google,
Yeah.
they all sell your data, and it's going to the same people they're saying they want to protect us from. And you start thinking even deeper. Like last year, you heard about China buying up a bunch of farmland in America. Nobody said anything about that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good. Like, it just feels like a blatant lie.
It sounds like Billiam and China are partnering up because he's the biggest landowner in America right now. And bought up most of the land, and they bought up the rest of it.
Yeah, if they really cared about our well-being, there'd be things like, hey, why don't we get all of these chemicals that are in everything out of our food and water that are illegal in other countries and that have been proven to be dangerous? And
every other country.
The scariest thing you could hear, and I don't remember the exact quote, but the scariest thing for me that you could hear is the government being like, we really want what's best for you.
Yeah.
And that always comes with some infringement. And in this case, it would be one of the last outlets where people can somewhat say the truth. Like, that isn't BitChute or Rumble.
I know Reagan. I'm pretty sure this is a quote to Reagan, but I know a lot of people have their disdain against him. But I think it was him that said, when the government says we're here to help, you better run.
Yeah. Yeah. We're here to protect your security because only we can sell it to people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Only we can sell it to people, and only we can control what the algorithms let loose or don't let loose.
And they're in that one Congress hearing when they were talking about data and stuff like that, and that one person was like, well, how do we profit from it?
Exactly,
like,
dude.
What the fuck are you talking about?
That's the bottom line of all this, is like, if we can't make money off of it, nobody can make money on it.
Yeah.
So only we can sell your data. Only we get to decide what's in your food and water. And it just like exponential that to every dynamic that they have the ability to control you over.
It's all ridiculous, man. And people were just standing by and watching it flow down the toilet. And it all runs clockwise, son.
It's like it's that mentality of, well, it's not happening to me until it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll get off the horse for a minute.
Yeah.
Do you have another lighthearted one, or is it?
It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard line. It's So I don't really like getting into things like this too much. So in the more liberal areas of the United States, there's been a far outcry for defunding police. There has been.
Oh, yeah.
And granted, there are instances where the police use excessive and at times deadly force when it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
necessary. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I'm not arguing if defunding the police is ethical or if it's logical.
Yeah.
But
we don't get in. That's one thing you'll never hear from us if you've never watched us before. We don't get into political ditches.
no.
But
But
anyway.
So New York City in 2020, they didn't fully defund the police. New York City is one of the biggest cities in the United States. Everybody knows that. It's way overpopulated. So in 2020, they decided to cut the budget by $1 billion, which
that's a lot of money.
Well, granted, their budget's like $90 billion a year or something.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, this forced the New York City police to determine where they could patrol and where they couldn't. So one of the areas that was less patrolled was the subway system in New York.
Okay.
So over the last years, ever since this has occurred,
I don't know where this is going.
Crime has shot up in the subway systems in New York.
Okay.
So now, after they defunded the police by $1 billion, they have decided that it's time to move in. What is it? The National Guard.
What?
To start patrolling the subway systems along with the state troopers too. And now they're also going to have to hire 1,000 new New York Police Department.
Dude, are you kidding? Like, how much is that costing to deploy the military to the subway?
To the subway too, because crime is.
When did this happen?
It's happening now. Like right now. But so the reason I bring this up is because police do use excessive force at times, deadly force, but there is a situation where you run into, because when they defund the police, who's going to still have the private security and the walls built around their house? So the people that defunded the police are going to have that. It's not going to be you. It's not going to be me.
Yeah. Well,
what they should do, in my honest opinion, is put more money into it to vet better for people they hire.
Yeah. Or more lengthy training, or, just like people go to college to be a lawyer, maybe there could be a pathway that the tax money would actually be useful for if everybody wanted extra training for the police to have like really elite, like SWAT level police instead of, somebody fresh out of high school or something like that. Like, yeah, that's insane though. Because that's costing a lot more money to bring in the military. Military to patrol your subway system is nuts.
Exactly, and that's what's going to happen though. I mean, if they end up doing what they want to do and defund the police nationwide, crime is going to be so rampant that the only people that can come in and save the day is going to be the military.
Well, it sucks because, you just said it a minute ago, the people who are making decisions are sitting behind walls in mansions.
Yeah.
And it already has created a two-tier society where it's those in power and the ant farm that they have of tax money.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't get to pick. We don't get to pick what that goes toward.
And the military is not the thing that scares me the most, because the military is us. It's our brothers, our sisters, our friends.
Oh yeah, yeah.
My true fear is like the ones that come from like NATO. like whenever that martial law starts being set in, because once they defund a population of police, crime gets so rampant, they're going to have to start injecting curfews and things of that nature, and then they're going to have to write new bills on certain things that you can't say anymore because it might incite things.
Do you think some of it's controlled chaos though? They're like, we know we can do this, and it's going to inflame everybody in the political system, including the voting population,
mm-hmm.
because you've got this group having a pissing match with this group, and nobody ever looks up to the people who are actually, setting the hills on fire.
Exactly. That's more than likely what all this is going toward. Like, and I mean, I'm not a black pill person at all, unless you may listen to last week's episode, Weird Awakens, but typically I'm not a black pill person. I want everything to work out right. But the way that everything's moving and everything's gliding right now, it doomy days look on the horizon. Like, it's strange.
That's exactly what I mean, Stephen, is they are, they do these controlled demos where it's, I say little stuff, I know $1 billion, like Cecil's talking about, isn't little, but it's like, it's a win-win for them, because best case scenario, they look good politically. Worst case scenario, they get everybody inflamed and it's never going to touch them.
No.
But I think the plan here, I think we're going to start coming on Fridays. We'll pick, some different stuff to bring to the table, get a good 30 to 45 minutes in. We're going to be going live at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, and then at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to drop off Where in the Folk. We'll probably cut the show probably at 45 minutes each week.
Yeah.
And then we will be on Weird Awakenings with the Weird Crew at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
It's good to be back. And we've got, plans to do some long form stuff, which will be pre-recorded. So we'll still have episodes like before where we talk about topics. I know we've been wanting to do a big Tartarian episode next week. It may not be all news either, but definitely weird stuff we're going to be bringing every week. Like, I know we want to have a thorough conversation on the pole shifts at some point, with the eclipse coming up next month and the Devil's Comet coming.
Yeah.
So we'll get preloaded on that. We didn't want to doom it out the first episode.
We should take off work while that's happening, just in case it is in their world. We can broadcast it in.
Oh yeah, we just point it up at the sky, right?
But yeah. Thank you for watching us. We will be back. I kind of enjoyed this little format. We never went live with the Where in the Folk because we're afraid we've always been afraid we're going to get nuked. But this point, I don't even care anymore. Like,
well, we don't stream to the same places either. We're on. I don't know where everybody's watching, but we're on Rumble. We're on BitChute, which is where we land. We'll land these live episodes on there, but we also have our long form stuff on BitChute. We're on Twitter, and that's really it. We are broadcasting to YouTube. We're not current on loads on YouTube, but we wanted to give the normal people a place where they could come comment if they wanted to join in on the conversation. But
yeah, the long form on YouTube is about 8, 9, 10 episodes behind, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
tune in next week.
Tune in next week, and thank you for watching us, because we're watching you.
Peace.
South Central.